And this email is from Melissa. My husband and I have 3 rental properties in Victoria. We're now in the process of setting up a self-managed superannuation fund. We're looking at defence housing for this purpose. It seems a safer option for superannuation. What do you think or recommend? I also currently, the main areas they have properties available in are Kelso, Queensland, Nowra, New South Wales and Newcastle. What would you suggest? Ben.
Well, there's three parts to that question, Margaret, isn't there? There's the first one about, they're obviously active investors, so they feel like they like the idea of having control. Having a self-managed super fund can potentially give that client some control. So around those sort of areas, I see some positives. In terms of defence housing, I suppose from my point of view, when I look at any type of investment, I want to do my research. Just because it's defence housing that may have some guarantees attached to it, it may not still be in the area that I would consider to be a suitable area to invest in. So I think from that point of view, it's probably worth doing the research. And in terms of those areas they recommend, it's probably not my speciality, so I'll step back from there.
That sounds like some great advice then. And Rick?
Yeah, Margaret, I think the self-managed superannuation fund is probably a great idea. Obviously, they need to talk to some experts about that. Defence housing, in some instances, is good. I have a lot of people who invest in defence housing, and my business is closely associated with those people. However, the agenda of the Defence Housing Authority is to provide housing for Defence Force people, not necessarily to provide investors with the best returns. So defence housing is in areas where there are Defence Force people to live in them, and whilst they get the rent guarantee, there is no guarantee or even research done on what the potential capital growth might be. So even though they might get the really good rent returns for the 12 years or whatever defence housing guarantee the rent, at the end of that term, there's absolutely no guarantee or even indication of what the capital growth may be.
Great, thanks for that, Rick. Melissa, a Defence Force house is essentially just another rent guarantee, and it has upsides and downsides. One of the things, as Ben has suggested, a rent guarantee can't remove your responsibilities as a property investor to do the research, and a rent guarantee can't turn an underlying bad investment into a good one. Now, that's not to say that Defence Force housing are bad investments. Some of them are good, and some of them may not be so good. It depends on whether the area that they are in stacks up under the questions that you need to ask as a property investor. So do your research first on all of the areas that you're talking about. If the research stacks up and it looks like a good area, then the rent guarantee might be a bit of icing on the cake for you, and it might make a good investment for you after all. Make sure you do the work yourself and don't trust anybody else to tell you where to buy. Well, we're going to go to another visitor of the home show and see what question they have for the panel. Hi there, what's your name?
Hi, my name's Nathan.
Hi Nathan, what's your question for the panel?
I'm looking at buying my first investment property. I'm just wondering, do you think there's any major benefit in, say, buying an apartment over a house or vice versa?
I love this question because we're always asked whether or not it's better to buy houses or units. Let's see what the panel has to say.
Yeah, Nathan, most of my investing, and the investing that I normally recommend, would be standalone housing, and the reason for that is to be able to afford to buy a reasonably good investment. You're normally looking in an outer area unless you can afford to buy right in a city. From my research, the component of property investment that increases in value is normally the land component, and with units there is a very small land component and a large building component which has lots of depreciation. So my personal preference is standalone housing because of the larger land component.
And Ben?
G'day Nathan. Look, it's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Houses versus units. We've probably answered this thousands of times. I would turn the question back to you and say, what are your objectives out of your investment? I mean, does it suit a cash flow need, or is it suiting a capital growth need, or is it a mixture of both? Once we understand what your goals and objectives are, it's a lot easier to then work out which is the better way to go and then start looking at where you buy that particular investment. So, people may buy units because they're an easier or earlier entry level in terms of value, but ultimately it really is about your objectives and your investment goals.
And Nathan, I'm going to give you some direct tips to help you out here. The value of a property and how well it rises in value depends on whether or not people are going to demand it, both as a tenant and as a buyer in the future. Now that then relates back to the demographics of the area where you're buying. You know, some people prefer to live in a unit and some people prefer to live in a house. Typically a family will want to live in a house so they get a backyard. Maybe a young couple who are just starting out in life might prefer to live in a unit. Maybe elderly people might want to live in some kind of a villa or something that's ground floor and easy to look after. The tip that I can give you is this. First of all, work out the area that you want to buy in, then find out what the demographics are and buy the property that suits them. The research has shown that in some areas apartments grow faster than houses, and in some areas houses grow faster than apartments, and that's directly related back to the demographics of the area. So that's what I'd suggest that you do, and good luck with it.
Great, thanks, Mary.
Thank you. Well, we're here at the Melbourne Home Buyer and Property Investing Show, bringing Your Money, Your Call live to you this evening. And Chris Gray is going to be coming up right after our short break, which we have to take now, so don't go away. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Your Money, Your Call. I'm Margaret Lomas, and of course I'm here with Chris Gray at the Melbourne Home Buyer and Property Investment Expo, and we're talking to the experts and getting their tips for you tonight. We're also talking to visitors to the show and getting their live questions and answering emails that you've sent to me through the week. Let's get right into it. Tonight I've got with me Rick O'Shea from QPS Property Group, and I've also got Ben Kingsley from Empower Wealth, and they're helping me to answer the questions tonight. We've got a couple of visitors waiting by, so let's go to their questions now. Hi, what's your name?
Michael.
Hi Michael, what's your question for the panel?
My question is, which state and which town is the best to invest in at the moment for the next, say, 12 months?
Oh, so you're looking for a little bit of a crystal ball forecast from us.
Could say that.
Okay, let's see what the boys have to say. Rick?
Mike, we all have our preferences, I'm sure. Margaret has given us a little presentation earlier this morning at a PIPA breakfast and given her opinions. My preference is southeast Queensland. I wouldn't be specific here, but on a town, but there are people in southeast Queensland or other property investment advisors that could certainly advise you on a specific place. But my personal preference at the moment is southeast Queensland.
Thank you. And Ben?
Yes, well, crystal ball gazing, you're right, Margaret. Michael, look, I think from my point of view, there's opportunities in every market. I would want to look at your particular circumstances and see what type of goals you're looking at, how many properties you want as part of your portfolio. I think that's the most important thing for me. There really are opportunities in every market, but it is about research. It's about understanding the dynamics that make properties grow in value, capital growth or income coming from those properties. So really, from my point of view, I'd want to sit down and say, well, what's important to you? And let's work from there.
And that sounds like good advice. Now, Michael, I have a tip for you. If you have to keep asking somebody else where to buy, then you're going to be one of the last ones into that area. It's a little bit like taking a share tip from the Financial Review. The best thing you can do for yourself is to become educated about property investing. That doesn't have to cost you a lot of money. You can read books, you can go online, you can go to as much free stuff as you can possibly do. And of course, coming here to the Home Buyer Show today is a great first step for you to take. Become educated, find out what it is that makes a good property investment, then you can be the first into an area rather than the last. You'll be picking your own hot spots before you know it.
Thank you.
Thanks for your question today, Michael.